The lawsuit brought on by consumers against AstraZeneca has the Indian internet once again up in arms about the Covishield vaccine. The lawsuit and the company's admission that the vaccine could cause some quote-unquote very rare side effects has led to a political furor, and unfortunately, many are mistakenly coming extremely close to sounding very much like those in the pseudo-scientific anti-vaccination camp. This, today in 2024, is a serious cause for concern. While criticizing those in power is our right and even our obligation, some might say, there are far more valid criticisms to be leveled against the Modi government for how they handled the pandemic or the vaccines than AstraZeneca's admission of these side effects. Owing to the really large risk to public health and observing in media how these vaccine hesitant sentiments can get weaponized, vaccine risks are a subject that need to be touched upon very carefully in an informed manner. Vaccines are not without risk, but generally speaking, vaccines are not risky. Adverse events, as they are medically known, are concerning. So, first, let's just look at these adverse events. What are these serious adverse events that are very rare? First of all, some people can be allergic to vaccines or ingredients used in any vaccine. These people would typically have a reaction within a couple of minutes of being administered the vaccine, which is why all of us are asked to wait in the hospital after we receive our vaccine for a while. Some other side effects are also known. Some get severe nausea and headache, some have diarrhea, etc. These might persist for a day or two or maybe even a week, but they will resolve by themselves. Fever is also a common symptom, and this is not a bad symptom. This is a good symptom because that's what a vaccine is supposed to do. So no worries there. The identified side effects that AstraZeneca has admitted to is called thrombosis with thrombocytopenia syndrome, or TTS. Thrombosis is the production of blood clots in the bloodstream, and thrombocytopenia is low platelet levels in the blood. TTS can lead to production of blood clots in the body, and these blood clots can travel through the blood vessels, through the veins or arteries, and can be life-threatening, especially if they reach the brain. Thrombosis is not really unheard of. It happens quite frequently in medical conditions. It can happen to people who are otherwise healthy but are injured or are pregnant or have cancer or have had a long surgery, or even those who are on specific oral contraceptives. Thrombocytopenia, low blood count, occurs in liver patients or those with certain autoimmune diseases. But the combination thrombosis with thrombocytopenia is not really frequently found, and outside of cancer patients, it's not really found much. This is, of course, when it is unrelated to vaccination. When TTS is induced by vaccination, it is called vaccine-induced thrombotic thrombocytopenia, or VITT. That is the condition that is more accurate to what we're talking about, and that is the one that AstraZeneca has owned up to. VITT was first identified in March 2021. It sets in anywhere from 50 to 30 to 42 days of treatment, and it is largely caused due to a genetic mutation called PF4. Platelet factor 4, those with this genetic mutation tend to have a tendency to get VITT after vaccination. So firstly, if it's been over a month of getting the vaccination and symptoms like stroke or, death have not presented themselves, the vaccinated people are safe from VITT today. TTS is rare, and in medical terminology, very rare means extremely, extremely, extremely rare, like 1 in a million at least rare. This is even more true for VITT. But what really exactly is the numerical probability? I personally like saying that a person is more likely to get hit by lightning than experience an adverse effect due to vaccine. This is not a new comparison or original. Many medical professionals have long used this lightning comparison to indicate the low risk of adverse events from any vaccine. And here's what studies have actually shown. A 2021 UK study found 79 cases of VITT in over 20 million vaccinations of Covishield of AstraZeneca. Another 2021 study showed 28 cases in 17 million AstraZeneca vaccines. A 2022 study showed 7.5 per million. And a 2024 study, quite recent, from multiple countries showed only 7 in nearly 99 million individuals across different types of vaccine, not just Covishield. These are some of the innumerable studies done on the safety of these vaccines, specifically the safety of Covishield itself. The probability of experiencing adverse events is so extremely low because vaccines have been around since the 1800s and have saved, at this point, billions of lives. We have completely eliminated 2 diseases because of vaccines: smallpox in humans and rinderpest in cattle. If vaccines were going about killing 1 in 50,000 people or even 1 in 250,000 people, as some people online seem to think, we wouldn't really be rolling vaccines across the globe for decades. Those are risky numbers. Safety profiles of vaccines have been well established for decades already. Covishield is an adenovirus vector vaccine, and these are also extremely frequently used. So people have wondered whether the vaccine itself can cause an infection. So for that, we need to understand how these adenovector vaccines work exactly and how these mRNA vaccines work and what the difference between them is. Adenovector vaccines and vector vaccines use an adenovirus as a vector or a carrier. In these vaccines, a weakened adenovirus that is incapable of causing infection or disease or dividing to multiply is used to carry protein into the body. In this case, what is being carried is the spike protein alone of the coronavirus. So the coronavirus also cannot infect. The adenovirus itself might not be able to cause disease, but it still knows how to latch on to our body. So it gets inside the body through the vaccine. And the immune system can, of course, quickly kill a single virion or even a group of virus. And when it does so, it then encounters the spike protein that is being carried by the adenovirus. The immune system realizes that the spike protein is a foreign body and promptly mounts an attack. This then leads the vaccine recipient to get a fever because the body is raising temperature and that is harmful to pathogens. The immune system then eventually trains itself to identify the spike protein and thus can stave off an actual COVID virus if it comes to infect us later. mRNA vaccines here need a special mention because they are brand new. This is the first time that we are using mRNA vaccines. mRNA is like a secret letter that gets read and then promptly burned. Instructions in an mRNA are decoded, and this is basically like a computer program that is being executed, and it makes the body actually build and synthesize a fake synthetic spike protein. The same immune attack process then repeats, and the mRNA, in fact, was long destroyed before the protein was even produced. So mRNA vaccines are safe, and advector vaccines are also really safe. They are very common and widely used. In fact, vaccines against HIV, Ebola, TB, and even the flu are often advector vaccines, and we know very well how to work with them. The work itself in India was done by the Serum Institute of India in Pune. Now, Serum Institute is the world's largest manufacturer of vaccines and has been pushing out vaccines since 1966. Today, they make 1.9 billion doses a year of vaccines. And if a person in India gets a tetanus shot or a newborn gets an MMR vaccine, chances are that they are Serum Institute vaccines. Serum Institute vaccines have been used by multiple countries, by WHO, UNICEF, and other such agencies for people across all ages. The recent AstraZeneca news coincides with the electoral bond news cycle, both having Serum Institute in common, but the billionaire owner of Serum Institute, the company itself, and the bonds are independent of the Covishield vaccine safety and efficacy. Serum Institute vaccines have been safe, reliable, and accessible, costing the lowest in the world, which are the main things that are pertinent to our discussion today. Besides, any other maker would have had to use the same formula because this vaccine is from AstraZeneca and it was developed by the Oxford University. All of this that we talked about until now is the necessary information to provide context with which we have to understand the recent AstraZeneca acceptance of rare cases and the lawsuit. India has a strong vaccine legacy. We do not have a history of an organized anti-vaxxer movement that has taken hold of America. Our vaccine logistics are extremely impressive, even for an Indian citizen. Infrastructure, of course, ought to be to this standard across the board, but that's a different discussion. We have study data, enough data to be able to say that the Covishield vaccine is safe and reliable for its purpose. First, these vaccines reduce deaths. That is the primary purpose of vaccines. Then they reduce serious disease, another benefit of vaccines. Then they prevent disease altogether, another advantage. And lastly, they prevent transmission from one vaccinated person to any other person. If the vaccine does the first, which is preventing death, it is successful. This isn't to say that the vaccine is 100% free from side effects. Nothing is 100%. There are indeed notable ones that the company has admitted to, such as VITT, and also others like encephalitis and myelitis that have been detected and have been known a month into the rollout of the vaccines globally. The numbers are very, very low. But nothing is new. There is no information in the lawsuit or in AstraZeneca's statement that we do not know already. The side effects information is included in the vaccine packaging itself, and many countries have indeed adjusted their vaccine rollout policies based on these adverse effects. Some countries in the European Union had temporarily halted the AstraZeneca vaccine briefly, but then immediately resumed when reports clearly began to show within a few days that these cases of VITT are extremely rare. Nothing is completely effective for all people. There is no 100% efficacy for 100% of the people who receive a therapeutic or a vaccine. Medicines are biochemicals that interact with our body, and our heterogeneous population, where we are all different from each other, will inevitably carry people with one or two of the millions of genetic mutation that could cause a person to react adversely to a therapeutic or a vaccine. Over time, this becomes known, its risk is evaluated depending on how common these reactions are, and vaccines are modified if necessary. And even then, vaccines would not be 100% safe for 100% of the people who take them. And this is true for all vaccines. Even today, we take the polio vaccine. Polio is almost entirely eliminated except in difficult to access terrains in Afghanistan and Pakistan, Hindu Kush. These are occupied by the mountains' regional tribes, almost cut off from the rest of the world. OPV, oral polio vaccine, has a known and well-established side effect since it is a weakened form of the polio virus. In rare cases, it can actually cause the very disease that it is trying to prevent. And indeed, in 2021, a whole total of 6 polio cases were documented globally, while 10 generations of not just the Indian subcontinent, but the entire world has received the vaccination. So there's that lightning number again. Forget vaccines. In rare cases, many users online have also pointed out that even paracetamol has extremely serious side effects. In some people, it can lead to bloody stools, back spasms, extremities turning blue, becoming dizzy or fainting and not waking up, and more. Once again, even with paracetamol, such cases will occur within the first 6 weeks or 42 days of ingesting the medicine or taking a vaccine. The vaccine does not cause permanent change in our bodies. In medicine, a permanent change would indicate a genetic change, and these vaccines and medicines are incapable of modifying our DNA. So, symptoms don't present themselves months later. The paranoia induced by the recent news and its various interpretation has led to a lot of confusion like this, but has also led to some interesting questions. What about cardiac events? Cardiac events can be triggered by VITT, and that carries even less probability. But COVID, which has moved through our population silently and invisibly, is known to trigger serious cardiovascular issues and diabetes in otherwise completely health, fit, and sporty people. Many of us who have never tested positive for COVID would have still caught an asymptomatic infection. I myself have not had a sense of smell for nearly 2 years now, but I constantly tested whenever I felt sick, and I never tested positive for COVID. I clearly got it at some point because lack of smell is a symptom of long COVID, but not the vaccine. Likewise, many others would have also gotten COVID without knowing. And subsequent reinfections for COVID incidentally get worse, unlike other diseases. That is an actual mystery. But back to vaccines. Why does it take so long to approve a vaccine in general, and how come COVID vaccines got rolled out so quick? Well, vaccines need long trials to see the effects of vaccines over time. However, in an emergency situation like a pandemic, lack of time can be compensated numerically by increasing the number of people that are being tested. And that is what happened with the COVID vaccines. Besides, these vaccines did not come out unnaturally quick. Covaxin was asked to be launched in 1.5 months, in time for India's Independence Day. That would have been unnaturally quick and, in fact, impossible. So these are all not concerns to suddenly take up at this point. Besides, there is absolutely nothing new in the recent development. Why are we agitating over something we knew more than 3 years ago? There are things that we still do not know, and those things we deserve answers to. How many cases were there in India, and how many adverse events were reported in India? Oops, we don't know. Here we have hit the meat of the matter. The right question to be asked is, where is the adverse event reporting in India? US has a system called Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System, or VAERS, and the Indian version of that is Adverse Effects Following Immunization, AEFI system. This exists for a reason, and data here is required to make our vaccines as perfect as we can and reduce the medically rare risk that exists today. However, there is no available website or dashboard where adverse events from India are available or can be recorded. When someone experiences an adverse event, not many people know that the first thing to be done is to contact the Ministry of Health. People don't know how to report these events. It's too late for the COVID vaccine now, but the lack of national level data like this reduces transparency and responsibility. And those are the more valid things that need to be questioned. There are two subjects in the overlapping political and scientific discourse that are sacrosanct and that need a lot of context and knowledge to be touched upon: vaccines and climate change. Behind every headline and update are thousands and thousands of scientists who have crunched up numbers built upon the work of thousands more. Discussing these topics and raising questions about them requires a deeper knowledge and context for the safety of our own citizens and future generations. All of this is not to say that vaccine rollouts in India were smooth and without fault. Scientists were asked to get out a vaccine in 1.5 months. How? As cases spread, there were election rallies being held. How come? Coronal makers are apologizing now. What's up with that? Efficacy of Covaxin. Where's the data? Adverse reporting is non-existent. Why? All valid questions. But they are all firmly on one side of the line of vaccine safety. This side has questions that are already answered. Vaccines are good even when companies are sued. Thank you for tuning in to watch a video from ThePrint. Videos like this and all other forms of journalism that we do is possible only because of support from our readers and viewers such as yourselves. Please do subscribe to ThePrint both on YouTube as well as on our website. A button to subscribe will be right here underneath this video. Thank you for your support.